Welcome to the Nevada Hoops Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Flayton, coming to you live from my state of the art recording studio in Elko, Nevada. Yeah, not so much, but I did kind of take one of my bedrooms, made it into a little office, man cave kind of recording area. So, yeah, it turned out all right. But, yeah, glad you guys could join me. We got that first episode out last night and pretty much messed around all day trying to get that episode out to the different podcasting apps there. We had some success. I think should be some of them had said to me, might take like a day before they can get it out, but should be at least by tomorrow. Should be out on obviously Spotify, Pocket Casts, Amazon Music, Audible, iHeart, Castbox, Podcast Addict, Player FM, Pandora, Sirius XM, YouTube. The big one where I just was running into a roadblock today was with the Apple stuff. Just the Apple Podcasts and the other few apps that kind of go through Apple. I just wasn't working, but I'll keep plugging away on it. Maybe tomorrow we can get that fixed. Just do a couple quick little housekeeping things on that last episode. Okay, so I think that volume level was probably a little bit low in that first episode, so we made some adjustments. I think this is going to sound better. So apologize for that, and hopefully I didn't turn you guys off too much. So yeah, just a couple little things after going back and listening to that. The guy that initially came out with that report that the Mountain West had made an offer to Grand Canyon and with the different aspects of WCC commissioner was going to be meeting with Grand Canyon. That guy's name is John Canzano, not Calzano, like I said a couple times. So even though I personally can't stand the guy, figured I would give a little bit of a correction on his name there. And then just two other things on so I spent a lot of time going over like every school in the WCC and the Big West, and obviously, I was, to shorten it up for the podcast, we only talked about a couple, but there was two things that I know I wanted to mention. So one, when I was initially looking at the West Coast conference roster, you're looking at like Loyola Marymount, and I'm like, whoa, Loyola Marymount, there's a school with some tradition. And so I'm like, let's take a look how many times these guys have been to the tournament in the last 30 years. And yeah, turns out they haven't been there since 1990. And that's the Loyola Marymount that I remember, right? Bo Kimball and Hank Gathers. Yeah, so if any out there are wondering how old I am, that aged myself right there. But yeah, the old boys from Marymount haven't had a whole lot of success since then. So yeah, we'll just be leaving them out of the potential additions. But then one other thing on USF. So one thing, if they were to go that route and potentially add the Dons, that would give the Mountain West 4 schools that have won a Division One basketball national championship, right? You got Wyoming in 1943, USF in 55 and 56, UTEP in 66, and then the Runnin' Rebels in 90. So, granted, most of those were a few years back, but still kind of fun. So, all right, we're gonna get into this next episode here, where we are gonna be talking about just basically focusing on our incoming transfers for this season. So right off the bat, our biggest addition is Kobe Sanders, 6'9" point guard coming over from Cal Poly. So he was recently voted Mountain West preseason newcomer of the year at media days just last week. So I'm not the only one expecting big things out of Kobe. Um, so I the pack really went after him quick. As soon as we were eliminated, put the full court press on him and got him in the bag pretty quick there. And I think that was probably one of the reasons that we were able to land him, is the fact that we were on him so early. And I'm thinking another reason why it ended up being a good match is, so obviously Alford really took a liking to having the big point guard with Keenan last year, and I believe that that is Sanders' preference, is to play point guard. So when I was able to watch a few of his games last year for Cal Poly, and they really didn't have him playing the point in the games that I to was able to find. But I mean, he apparently did play his fair share there. He just wasn't in the games that I was able to watch. But this this dude's the real deal. There's some low level NBA draft stuff out there. I've seen it. I've seen it in a few areas. Um, so I mean, this is a big time talent. The the big so the big difference. I mean, if we're kind of it's gonna be kind of hard not to make the comparisons with him and Blackshear, but so Kobe he can shoot the three. He shot at 34% last year, but on pretty high volume, and he can he really gets to the rack. He doesn't really like to get on top of the basket, but I mean he'll really get downhill, drive, and just kind of choose to have kind of finish with just a smooth layup. Uh, he gets to the foul line often. Uh, 6.9 foul shot attempts per game, and he shot it at 87% clip last year. So it really gets to the line, really shoots it nice from the stripe there. Um, the big, I mean, the big difference. So I don't, we don't really want to make this just a comparison of last year's team, but it's kind of hard not to when, I mean, Alford's really kind of making a point that Sanders is going to be he's the starting point guard. So when we compare what's that going to look like compared to last year's team, right? Um, I really think it could be a huge positive for us on the offensive end. I mean, when you think, I mean, Blackshear obviously is a Wolfpack great, but when the offense got clunky at times, it would have, when he and Himes were on the court at the same time, that's when the offense, in my opinion, really felt like it bogged down. Um, having two non-shooters on the court, and even when we didn't have that, there were still times when the offense just kind of struggled, because obviously the defense just where the opponent that is guarding Blackshear, he's just able to sag off and just kind of gums up the rest of the offense. So I don't that's not gonna happen this year. The pack is gonna have they're gonna have at least four shooters on the court at all times, and I really think that's gonna give this offense a bump. But yeah, Sanders, just very complete, all around offensive player. The handle's good. Even though I said I didn't really see him running point in the games that I watched, I mean, you can tell that the handle's there. I don't really foresee turnovers being an issue. The passing acumen looks good to me. Re- Rebounds it fine. Uh, really thinking we're going to see big things from Kobe. Obviously the thing that scares you, I mean, the elephant in the room, right? He's coming over from Cal Poly, who was just atrocious. I mean, just one of the worst teams in D1 basketball last year. So, I mean, of course that's going to scare you. And he had a big jump statistically from which I believe last year was his actual fourth year, actually. So this will be his fifth year in college. Because I think he had a COVID year there. But so yeah, he had a big year from 2 years ago into last year, and but I don't really see. I guess I don't think that should scare us because there were. I mean, if I remember right, this just kind of popped into my mind. I'd kind of forgotten about, but he was one of those late bloomers that he actually grew a couple inches when he was after he got to Cal Poly, So I think you're just talking about a guy that's just physically a little bit of a late bloomer, and it's all coming together for him now. But yeah, it's gonna be exciting. I'm just super excited about Kobe. Can't wait. Speaking of, we got 8 days, and we're gonna be getting to see some Wolfpack basketball. Sam Houston State coming to town. They just announced 7 p.m. tip. That was the last game according to ESPN. That was the last game that had a actual start time. Every other, and there's like 200 of them or 300 uh, games going on that first opening day. Yeah, it's so don't sleep on Sam Houston. We'll be covering them next week on our preview. But last year's regular season conference USA champions, bringing a lot back. But okay, we gotta not sidetracked a little bit there. All right, let's move into our next edition. Xavier DuSell, 6'5" shooting guard coming over from Fresno State. Before that, he'd been at Wyoming for 3 years. So we got another guy who's going to be fifth year of Division I basketball here. Xavier, flat out one of the best 3-point shooters in the country. Mark it down. This dude's no joke, okay? He stays healthy, he's going to break the all-time Mountain West 3-point make record. He is just going to be the perfect addition for this team, okay? He really stretches that court for us in some of the same ways that Jared Lucas did for the team last year. But they got a little bit of a different way of getting to it though, right? Lucas, maybe not the most athletic player that we've ever seen don a Wolfpack jersey. He wasn't really able to get like a whole lot of separation between he and his defender, but he still, because the dude was such a stud, had no problem burying shots with the defender, in close range. So DuSell is a lot different in the fact that he's a lot quicker when he's running around out there, running around screens, really creates a lot more separation from that defender. So, and gets good looks, not afraid to shoot it from really deep beyond the arc. Dude's 39.5% last year exact same number as he's been for his career. Um, yeah, so I guess the downside on Ducell is, I mean, I don't know. I probably shouldn't be sitting here. Okay, let's compare them straight up to the guy that graduated, the guys that graduated, right? Probably kind of stupid, but I mean, if you're looking for the differences, other differences in he and Lucas's game, Ducell, he doesn't bring that mid range game that Jared had, and that ability to draw fouls down there. So I mean, he's definitely a different player, a different offensive player in that aspect. That he's not he's not really he's not that safety net guy that Jared was, where anytime the plays has broke down and we got a couple seconds left on the shot clock and it's just hey, get the ball to Lucas and he'll he'll get a look to where he can actually make something at a fairly high percentage. Um, so Ducell's not going to offer that. Okay. I mean, he's pretty on offense. He's pretty much strictly a 3-point shooter. And like I said, he's one of the best out there. If you folks have not watched him, uh, he is the real deal from deep. Then we're going to, so we didn't really talk about Sanders defensively. I thought Kobe was average from what I seen on tape. Nothing special, but definitely didn't seem like a defensive liability out there. But so just to add that, I kind of forgot. But then so back onto Ducell's defense. Um, so when it came out that the Pack had signed Ducell, um, there was a lot of talk out there about his defensive metrics. Um, and so before I get into this, I just want to say, so if it wasn't for the content that Chris Murray is putting out there, right, we wouldn't have anything. Okay, so just because I might take a few things from here and there and have a disagreement with Chris doesn't mean I don't totally respect the guy, and yeah, he knows 10 times as much as I do. But uh, so the only reason I might say, hey, Chris Murray said this, but I totally disagree. It's because that's all that's out there, right? As Wolfpack basketball fans, basically the only content that we're getting is what the coaching staff tells Murray that he can release to the public. If it wasn't for that, we wouldn't even know if the Pack had a team this upcoming season. So, with all due respect, there, so he was pretty hard on Ducell's like defensive metrics and stuff, and saying like he graded out like I can't remember, it was like an F or D minus or something like that. And I don't believe in those defensive metrics. I'm gonna watch tape and use my eyes and determine if a guy can play defense or not. And Ducell is perfectly fine on the defensive end. I mean, he's gonna be a huge upgrade defensively over Lucas. And again, I'm not Jared Lucas is the man, okay, but I mean, let's be honest, we kind of had to hide him on defense. His defensive assignment was the other team's worst player. Okay, we're not gonna have to do that with Ducell. Dude, 6'5", moves well. I see nothing from the multiple games that I watched that has me worried about him on the defensive end. I think he's gonna be I think he's gonna be super solid for us there. I think he's plenty switchable. Um, yeah, and when you talk to Wyoming fans, I mean, he played 3 years there, and he was regarded as a good defender. that Fresno State team was just a mess. It was just a mess last year. So I mean, I I wouldn't look too much into that. Uh, so, but yeah, so that's the deal there. I mean, he's going to be our starting shooting guard. Um, yeah, we so those are the two big guns replacing the two big guns that graduated. All right, now we're gonna move on to our number three transfer. All right, we're already at 20 minutes. I gotta pick up the pace here. We're gonna go a little quicker. All right, this is my pick to click right here. This can be my bold prediction. Okay, Brandon Love, 6'10" center from Texas State coming in. Even though there has been very little out there, okay, when you look at all the magazines, when you look at the interviews that Alford has done, yeah, sure, he's talking about Love, but he hasn't said anything about him starting. Uh, Chris Murray he's when he talks about Love, he always mentions that he's going to compete for the starting job. And I here's the deal. Okay, so Love is a bouncy, athletic son of a gun. All right. If you don't believe me, you can go get on YouTube and you can go watch their game against the Texas Longhorns last year, and and you'll be excited. Okay. So so obviously, so hey, I don't have inside information. Okay. I wish I had some inside information to maybe an assistant coach, and so I could give you guys some nuggets. But so this is all just me just being a weirdo that just spends way too much time analyzing tape, analyzing interviews, reading through the lines. And so like with Brandon Love, okay. So he had been he when he announced he was going to transfer, shortly after it came out that he had been in contact with Oregon State, Arkansas, TCU, A&M, North Texas, Missouri, Western Kentucky, ASU, McNeese, and Cal. Okay. And that was just like within days of after him uh, entering the portal. Okay. So now I'm not saying that every one of those teams offered him and said, "Hey, we want you to come in here and be our starting center." But I mean, this dude wasn't fielding calls from Sacramento State and Idaho State. All right. So he, in my opinion, from being around the block and with this type of stuff, he's not coming to Nevada to add depth in the center position. Okay. He would have been told by the coaching staff, hey, you sign here, you come in, put the work in, keep your nose to the grindstone, and we fully expect that you are going to have the opportunity to start for us. Okay. Dude ain't coming here if he wasn't told that. Now, yeah, I guess you could tell me that maybe the coaching staff is going to just blow smoke up his butt and they don't believe that and they just want to bring him in as depth, but I don't think that. I don't see that. I don't see any reason why they wouldn't have been honest with the guy. So, yeah, so I think unfortunately for KJ, I think Love's gonna edge him out. And I I mean, hey, I'm just like I watched a handful of Texas State games, and I watched almost every Nevada game last year. And Love was just a better player than Himes last year. Um, sorry if that offends some folks out there, I'm gonna tell you how I see it. Okay. And just one more thing on Love. When I'm out there and I was analyzing a lot of these centers um, that were in the transfer portal, and I'm looking at their career stats and stuff like that, and because a lot of these centers that were on the market had a COVID year, so you're able to see stats in year three, stats in year four. And so often with those centers, you see that big jump from year three to year four. Love's a guy that's only been in school uh, for 3 years, and then this will be his fourth. So he I think he can really take a step up and really provide us with a lot. And then just one other thing on that. And so Alford did an interview with BJ Rains, Boise State beat writer. So he did an interview with him at Mountain West Media Days last week, but he also did an interview with him this summer because BJ Rains did the Mountain West preview in the Lindy's magazine. And you go back and watch that interview, and two different times, Alford says we've addressed our physicality and athleticism. So when I see that, I'm analyzing that statement, and it's like, okay, what does that mean? There's other areas where you can kind of put two and two together, but I personally think that's talking about athleticism at the center position. That's just my take. You guys, I guess we'll see if I'm right here in about 8 days. All right, moving on. Chuck Bailey the third, 6'4" guard out of Evansville. He was a all freshman team in the Missouri Valley last year. If you guys pay any attention to other conferences, the Missouri Valley was loaded last year. So this dude's coming in with some skills. Big time offensive talent. We before we talked about Ducell doesn't really give you that. It doesn't give you that mid range stuff that Jared Lucas brought you. Well, that's what Chuck Bailey's going to bring to this team. Dude's got a great mid range game. Can really attack the basket. He can shoot the three. Just an offensive talent. Now, with all that said, I mean, and I think he can kind of be that guy. How we talked how Lucas was that safety net on last year's team where when things broke down late in the shot clock, we could get him the ball and he could get off a decent shot. I really think Chuck Bailey brings a lot of those same attributes. So just super impressed with this offensive game. Now it's a lot of ISO. I didn't see a whole lot of passing. I'm not gonna lie. They were running him at the point a lot in the games that I watched. I'm thinking he's probably gonna be the backup too on this Wolfpack team, but he can handle. He's got a handle, and he's just kind of has a one frame of mind, and it's score. So when we look at the negatives with Chuck, on the film that I watched, defense was pretty rough. Just didn't really look engaged to me personally. And I think part of that reason was they had him coming off the bench. He was basically their sixth man, and I don't think he really liked that. I think he thought he should be in the starting lineup, and you just didn't really see that. I didn't see that engagement on the defensive end, and just some of the body language, like during timeouts and stuff like that was a little troublesome. So hopefully it doesn't look like he's going to be starting on this team. So hopefully he's done a little bit of maturing, and that coaching staff can keep him on the rails and keep him focused. And if they can do that, I think this dude's got a big future in a Wolfpack jersey. I could, I mean, he's gonna get his minutes this year. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, I could see next year him really moving into an expanded role, and it's next year's team is a 1-2 punch with with sorry there, brain cramp with his so 1-2 punch with him and Nick. Yeah, for sure. But all right, dang it, we are just struggling here with the time. Just see, this just takes so much longer to get through than I thought. So all right, so moving on to Justin McBride, um, 6'7" forward out of Okie State. So he was a freshman last year. He came in as like a pretty high rated high school kid. He was a top 100 recruit. Went to Okie State. They were really talking him up preseason, and people were expecting big things. He started off the season in the rotation, and then after like it was like late November, he fell out of the rotation. And I think probably what it was is you had a coach. His name escapes me, but he ended up getting on the hot seat there, and I think he's looking saying, oh man, I gotta try to coach to save my job right now. I don't have time to work in these young guys. So he made the call to end up going with his vets, and uh, you know it didn't work out because he ended up getting fired anyway. But uh, so McBride didn't really play a whole lot. Ended up getting back in the rotation the last 3 games of the year. Really athletic kid. I'm not going to get into it a whole lot other than uh, they were saying Alfred was saying at media days last week that he was like one of the youngest players in D1 last year, like 17 years old at like Okie State. So this dude's super young. And then in the Oregon scrimmage last week, I meant to go back and get the exact quote, but it was said that the main the main scores for the pack were Sanders and Nick and McBride. Like those were the standouts in the game. So I was thinking McBride was probably going to be right on that edge of being in the rotation. I was thinking he was probably going to be like 9-10, but the fact that he had a big game, maybe he's going to be a bigger part of it than I thought. So I don't know if they well the picture was out there. So I guess my only question would be on the reason that was one of the reasons that he was one of the Wolfpack's main contributors in the Oregon scrimmage. Was that because I don't know why I just sit here and have brain cramps on this stuff, but good gracious. Was that because Daniel Foster didn't play? Because when you went back a handful of days before the Oregon scrimmage, the Wolfpack posted a bunch of pictures of just an internal scrimmage that they had, and everybody, you could tell that all the roster players were in jersey and had just played, and Foster actually had a different shirt on and had a little bit of an ankle wrap. So maybe, and I don't think it's anything major, but I suppose there's a chance that Foster didn't play, and that's why McBride had the increased minutes. But we'll see. It'll be fun seeing what we can get from McBride. All right, moving on to Yuto Yamanuchi Williams, coming over from Portland State. He's a 6'10" forward. Uh, he originally signed with Wyoming, and I was a weirdo following this transfer portal stuff, like I just found it fascinating for some reason. I realize a lot of people out there like think it's like the downfall of college athletics, and I totally get that aspect of it, that it's not the world that we grew up in, but but it's like super fascinating, man. Like if you're like ever into like the free NBA free agency, stuff, like this is that on steroids. But yeah, Manucci Williams, yeah. So he initially signed with Wyoming. Somehow like I missed it, and it like Linder, like what a dirtbag move, right? Dude takes off for Texas Tech assistant job on like May 10th. Oh my goodness. But okay, that we'll talk more about that on next in the podcast that we're gonna try to do a little later tonight. But so Yamanuchi signs with uh, Wyoming from Portland State, and and then we get him when it looked like we were already out of scholarships, and then we had a high school kid who didn't qualify or something like that, so we end up having another one, and we get in Yamanuchi. And so I quickly go back and I'm like watching Portland State film, and I'm like, holy cow, how did Wyoming get this guy? I'm like, this guy's a gem. He'd have been one of the best players on their team this year. And so I was like super high on him at first, and then then I'll admit, once I kind of started watching more and more film, you kind of see the holes, and the main thing was he just looks like he really needs to add strength. And they played him. The games I watched, Portland State was playing him at center a lot. He moves okay on defense. Didn't really show any shot blocking acumen that I seen, but he looks like he can stretch the floor a little bit, and so the Wolfpack's gonna redshirt him this year, and I think he could be a nice piece in the future. So keep an eye on him. All right, we about got this puppy whipped. So just kind of like a general overview of our 6 incoming transfers. I guess the thing that kind of I personally I feel like the Wolfpack just like really threaded the needle, and I feel like that's what they're that they think they can do going on into the future. Um, yeah, a team like Nevada, you might lose that top player every couple years, but I really think we can fill that in with good, solid players around it. Um, deep, deep rosters. This this team's one of the deepest teams in the country. I'm not even kidding you. Um, but yeah. So the scary thing when you're looking at the group, when you're looking at this group of transfers, they all are coming from losing teams last year, right? Yeah, that's the thing that scares you. Okay, Sanders coming from Cal Poly, they were terrible. Dussel coming from Fresno, they were terrible. The one thing with Dussel, he was a starter on that NCAA tournament team from Wyoming 3 years ago. So keep that in mind. Love's Texas State team they were just average Sun Belt team last year. Evanston was bad, where Bailey's coming from. Portland State sucked, where Yamanuchi's coming from. So scares you a little bit, but I think that's probably we're not going to be able to go out and grab that big name transfer. We gotta kind of find. You're gonna have to kind of find the under the radar guys a little bit, and a lot of those guys are gonna be on the teams that maybe didn't have a whole lot of success, right? So yeah. Um, One other quick thing. So I'm definitely not gonna talk about break down the walk-ons, but one thing of note that I haven't heard anybody mention is we've only got one walk on the team this year, which is interesting to me because last year they had 3, and almost every team in the country carries 3. So uh, me just kind of thinking out loud, was the coaching staff thinking that maybe since their 3 of their walk-ons last year didn't that they didn't come back, was there maybe were they not super happy with just the, that chemistry and uh, I mean, let's be honest, with a walk on, one of the things you're looking for some cheerleaders at the end of the bench there, right? You definitely aren't. You don't want some dudes that are gonna be causing any issues because they're not getting an opportunity. So maybe, I don't know, maybe the coaching staff was just like, hey, we're not we don't want to deal with that this year, and we're just gonna add one. We got a super deep squad. There's already going to be a couple guys at the end of the bench that are going to be unhappy. We don't need a couple more. So, yeah, that's the end of this episode. We're at 40 minutes. Again, way too long, but we did improve from yesterday. Um, we're going to come back, right? We're going to come back with our third episode here tonight on Mountain West team order of finished predictions. Yeah, other thing I forgot to mention last night is my Twitter handle at Jason Flayton, at JasonFlaten. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.